Hey, we're live. It's telling me we're live. I'm still unsure how this thing works. Well, actually, I'm very sure how it works. I'm unsure how it's working.
I mean,
for all of you.
if me and Chris could figure it out for EOF, dude, I'm pretty sure we're safe.
Yeah.
I
So,
think.
welcome back. I guess, Corey's just calling them seasons because I just wanted to go like just straight numbers and not really worry about like seasons. But so season 3 for Earful of Dirt. We need to issue like a press release or something. But Craig Gridelli from American RFC will join us for the rest, maybe in perpetuity, and hopefully ESPN buys us, and we have an earful of dirt is on ESPN, and then
because that worked out for Barstool, right?
Yeah, it's worked out great for Barstool. They have a satellite channel on XM, so
I was more so talking about their deal with ESPN and that show that never happened.
Oh yeah, as long as money gets exchanged, and if we get money, if they just buy it, if we get thousands of dollars.
Then all the skeletons in Aaron's closet get unserviced by ESPN.
Oh my god!
That's gonna.
I'm gonna go delete my Twitter now.
But delete everything from high school.
The Texas LSU game was pretty awesome last night. If you happen to catch that, if you're into college football.
Texas LSU. What about Army, Michigan?
Well, neither of us attended West Point, so hopefully you're rooting against West Point every time.
I can take it or leave it, but I was definitely rooting them to beat Michigan. I mean, that's.
Oh, I am. I mean, the lady of the house went to Michigan State, so West Point beating Michigan would have been great. In this house, I gave props to two friends of mine, Nick Palmashana, who runs Ranger Up. I met him a bunch of years ago, and of course, friend of the show, Tony Ridnell, who are both graduates of that wonderful school on the Hudson. And I was like, props to the men of West Point for standing in the arena through 2 overtimes. Really, that's like an App State offense right there, right? But if you're Harbaugh, if you lose, you're basically fired.
I think Army attempted 4 passes the whole game. Not even kidding, 4 passes.
But so 2 things we're going to talk about today is, I think, there were some signings by New Orleans and San Diego since we've been gone. I don't think we touched on it. Keys Lensing was hired by the Seattle Seawolves as their next head coach, and at some point there will be a retirement announcement, but right now there's just been an announcement that Phil Mack is going to be serving as a full-time assistant to Keys Lensing. There was a New York hired an assistant coach and manager and team manager. I'm guessing team manager is actually the majority of his duties than the assistant coach part, because managing 40 athletes is actually very difficult. And team managers in rugby do not do the laundry. Just to let everyone know. That is not – they may have to, but I'm pretty sure I had – when I worked for Team Canada as a liaison, I had to take their laundry to a place. Like, the team manager never did the laundry. So
The debate about who does the laundry has long been fought in rugby programs across the world, and countless cases of ringworm have been the result.
I'm just surprised you guys washed your rugby kid. I just thought you wear it dirty the whole season. Isn't that the way it works?
You open that thing up and the flies die, but like above it, it's.
We definitely.
That's how you win scrubs.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know about the Scorpions, but we had like a jersey committee at Fort Bliss of like 7 guys, where depending on when the fixture was or what the fixture was, it was their turn. And like being on that committee was actually very important, more so than the social one, because we sort of had a bar outside the gate that just took our money. And their wings were okay. The beer specials were kind of trash, but whatever. It was Fort Bliss. Yeah, so we'll talk about and then supposedly tomorrow, it got postponed from Wednesday. New York will announce, I think, the rest of their staff. I know they've talked about the head coach specifically, but I think the rest of their staff is being announced. Also, I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Or it'll just get postponed again. I guess that's sort of how this thing has gone. And other than that, I think we're here to talk about the Eagles, right?
Let's do it.
All right, so
definitely not Philadelphia.
No. So last night, the USA Eagles defeated Canada Les Rouges 20-15 in Vancouver at BC Place. Although it looked like this thing needed to be hosted at something the size of Starfire, which Langford no longer is the size of Starfire. It is now an 11,000 seat stadium. So, yeah. Oh, this is great. I love how we get comments from Facebook Live directly into this from Gordon Hanlon. Should the Cowboys be given the Lombardi Trophy this week or next week?
I'm not sure if you heard about a certain guy named Antonio Brown signing with a certain GOAT, but no, I think y'all can hold off on that for now.
But so I guess the first thing we got to address. Anyone want to touch on that one about that game last night?
On the Canada game, yeah. Look, I think I have a few thoughts about this. One, a win is a win, and so I don't want to look.
Man, Craig just doesn't even go after the low hanging fruit of bashing a broadcaster.
Oh, that, yeah. No, I don't
the homers that's just a cheap shot, man. Come on now.
Let's just say if you tried to
cut out,
if you tried to watch this game legally, it was pretty rough.
I guess
apparently the replay file. Apparently the replay file is missing whole chunks in the first half.
Yeah, the first half. I mean, when Canada scored that first try, it took me 20 minutes to figure out what happened because my screen had frozen or whatever was going on, and when I turned it back on, the USA was kicking off again. I think it wasn't until halftime until I actually saw how Canada scored the first try. So yeah, it was a struggle of broadcasting for a while there. Though I will say the second half I didn't have any issues.
Yeah, I had one dropout in the second half, although I was expecting one to happen like that, and it didn't happen. But two big dropouts, big time. The first Canada try and Cam Dolan's try, because all of a sudden screen goes the audio's there. Screen goes black.
Yeah.
Screen goes black, and I'm trying to figure this out, and I reload.
And the audio was something weird. It was and a shoe's loose, and that's all. You couldn't see what was happening. We were talking about a shoe, and then next thing you knew, USA was in.
And my big question is you see companies like Next Level Rugby and and Gift Time Rugby and stuff like that who don't have these problems whenever they broadcast. Or I mean, they do have these problems from time to time, but just not on the infuriating level that Flow does at for games like this. So what is the disconnect is what I want to know.
Here's a good one. I need to ask somebody. So Flow hosted in Austin at their headquarters a watch party. We're pretty in tune with the Austin scene, sort of. I mean,
they must have had a lot of liquor flowing at that party, man, to keep people distracted.
There was I would say in the major Facebook groups of Austin Rugby, this was not advertised at all. And I'm if you're saying, hey, Flow Rugby, we're gonna do a solid to the people. We're just gonna have watch parties at the HQ in Austin all the time. Whenever the Eagles play, there's a watch party at HQ. Just do it. And you can have, and you know what? You just cater it. It looked like a big room if you see the picture from Alex Goff. Like, it's huge. So cater it, like blow it out, have a good time. At least that would give us something. But no one knew about it as far as I knew. Like,
I didn't know that, but they got Todd Clever there, so that's something, right?
Director of Austin Elite Rugby. I guess to sort of touch on that, I guess more players have, from last year are not going to be rejoining Austin. But back to this game.
From what I've heard, there's going to be a large local contingent for Austin next year.
Yeah, so that will be.
That's what they always wanted out there. That was, I think, the original vision was that the existing Austin community would become a professional club, and when it was more, ended up being more imported players, and I think that was a lot of the original conflict between the two.
Yeah, I guess that's so. If we're gonna call it that, I would say the chance of them having the second highest turnover and also being a last place team could be very high. If you're just going on local players, we know that, based on, I guess, Houston season 1, Austin season 1, they had a lot of local players, both of them, and they were both, bottom end of the league. So I think it really just depends on like building these rosters, get younger, bring a lot of college guys in, something we're going to see all across the league continuously, I think. But back to the Eagles. So first half, Liam, I think you said that this was the one half you got to watch. So
yeah, this was the one half that I got to watch, and unfortunately, my stream was less than legal, I guess you could say. So therefore, my streaming issues were probably tenfold compared to a lot of you people. But anyway, I was kind of thrown off by the lack of consistency in terms of ball movement by both sides. However, the USA was able to keep it. Keep it in their favor by every now and again finding the gaps. They definitely were able to draw Canada into the middle of the field while they stayed a tad bit more disciplined on defense. And unfortunately, that's all the commentary that I can really have on terms of an educated level. So back to you guys.
Yeah, look, I think for me that has played out pretty differently, even though neither was that high scoring, so it could potentially be a little overlooked. But I thought in the first half, the USA played pretty well defensively, but like when they were trying to play, both from the replay I saw of Canada's first try, because the original feed was cutting out, and the second try they scored in the first half were both kind of mental hiccups where the defense just didn't get set, and Canada made a cheeky attack towards a weak end of the pitch. And those are the only two times they really, made good attacking ball. When the U.S. was set and trying, they were doing a pretty good job of containing Canada, as we have for a few years now. So I thought, all in all, it was good defense in the first half, absent those couple of mental errors. But I thought the attack in the first half just had no direction to it. They didn't seem to have any idea. Like, when an attack is going well, for me, it's slowly building something, right? There's phases that are setting up a larger picture, and you do 15 phases, and each one builds on the last, and that creates your opportunity. It looked like they weren't building anything. They were just randomly, here's a forward crash ball. Here's a forward crash ball this way. Here's a kick with no kick chase. So they just looked like they didn't have any overall guidance of what they were doing. It was just like Joe Tafete, try to make something happen. Maybe he'd try an offload. That was about as best as you got in terms of attacking creativity in the first half.
I think that when I look at the first half, when I look at this game, it's really hard as a fan, as sort of an analyst. As a fan, first, I want to win everything all the time. Just I want to win. As an analyst, it was a struggle. Like, they had, if you look at the first 20 minutes, they had all the ball. I think we possessed the ball for under under a minute and usually about maybe 20 to 30 seconds at a time. They weren't really efficient with their ball. And I guess that says, our defense was pretty good overall. They did score. When they could get to the corner, they were relatively efficient with their set piece in the first half. In the second half, our set piece defense was really good. But in the first half, well, I didn't see one of the tries, so I couldn't really tell you what happened there. But I think it was looking at World Rugby's flow. It was Gordon McRory. Oh, yeah, I saw the replay of that. Basically, Gordon McRory gets this loose ball and just slices through our transition defense and scores something that he should never, ever be able to score against us. He just caught us on both back feet. And, if any of our defenders had just fallen over, that would have been the only thing to make it like more seemingly possible, because we were completely out of position. And it was kind of one of those Phil Mack or Nate Augsburger type quick runs in loose play. And normally those things shouldn't happen, especially the way we've been playing defense and the way we've been able to pick up. And then, we just played like complete ass. Another one was, Peter Nelson. I guess you're definitely seeing why they brought him in, and having him play fullback has been, really good. And I think he's going to sit there at fullback instead of 10 for him, like he did in this, in this one, because it does take away some of their attacking prowess. But then you need to find a way to put Parfrey on the field, because he's also a very dynamic player. But we were sluggish, and you knew we were going to be sluggish. What are the positives to take away from the first half, and even going deep into the second half, is was our front row, our first choice front row, healthy? Were they able to play a good amount of quality minutes? And we saw that they played 50 minutes together. And then I think Fry ended up playing around 80 minutes when Ollie Khalifi had to come off the pitch for an HIA, and Fry finished the game there. So it was very good to see. I mean, personally, in the last couple of starts for the Eagles, I really haven't been a fan. His form has been off, and he's drawn a lot of penalties, or should have drawn a lot of penalties. But in this game, oh, man, he forced Hubert Bidens and Sears Justice Duru to concede. Like, I'd have to go. It's not on World Rugby doesn't have the penalties on here, but I think he forced both of those guys together to concede a total. I think it was like 12 scrum penalties. I'm not sure. It was a lot. Whether the scrum went down or didn't. The old tactician, Eric Fry, looked like, he was ready to ball. And, just seeing TD just being healthy and being competent, I don't necessarily think, not Sears Justice Duru and not Hubert Bidens that went up against that went up against Eric Fry. That was like Jake Nicky and Matt Tierney, and the commentary was the same for there. I think Hubert Bidens did struggle to. Hubert Bidens is definitely Sears Justice Duru. Why do I keep getting that wrong? Justice Sears Duru. I'm gonna get killed when our Canadian listeners listen to this. The judge. I'm just going to go with the judge. I think Paul Mullen and TD definitely, at least against these opponents, showed that they both can scrum well. I thought when looking at Canada, I thought Biden's, he's in shape. He's ready to go. I thought he scrummed okay if you're a Canadian. Although you may be wondering still why Rob Brower isn't on this roster at all, because he's not. And that's sort of, it's going to be a hole for them, I think, based on who their schedule is. Because Namibia, I know that they're targeting teams, or they're hoping to target Italy, or they're hoping to target Namibia. But both of those scrums, are gonna be as difficult as our front row was last night, or harsher. Like they're gonna be facing some gunslingers, Oh man, someone loves Cam Dolan. Yes, we'll talk a little bit about Cam Dolan in a bit. And so for Canada, we played really badly in the first half, and they were able to take advantage of some of that. But then, so they went up 12-0, but then we outscored them 20-3. Going in we ended up scoring our first try. Cam Dolan, man, that guy is a try machine. If you want to know, at minute 36, and so for they score their second try in minute 16. So from minute 16 to minute 80, we outscored them 20-3. So
it's still not that much. I mean, that's a good outcome compared to the first few minutes, but before this match in our quick preview, we were predicted a 35-point win. So
they covered the spread.
Yeah.
Comparatively, we like I said, we didn't play well. We played horribly.
But I will also say Canada, they were playing with a lot of energy. They had that, we're the underdogs, we're home, we want to go to World Cup, we have a chance at an upset. They smelled blood. I thought they were playing well with a lot of intensity, and I feel like in the past, maybe not recent past, but 5-10 years ago, USA, when they start to see that kind of adversity and that kind of intensity, the mistakes would start to compound, and that's when a game might run away from them. Here, while they didn't play great, they kept their heads in it, and they still never really lost their confidence, in my view, and they grounded out. So I agree. Obviously, clearly from the score, it wasn't the best the USA has played in recent history, but I was impressed with their intestinal fortitude to stick with it and get the win away with that sort of opposition coming at you.
To finish that first half, only down 2 points, shows that even when we start poorly, we can come back, at least against relatively like-for-like opposition. Because Canada is below us, but talent level is pretty similar overall. They have a bunch of guys in MLR. They have a bunch of guys in Europe. They have a few Southern Hemisphere guys. When it comes to when it comes to overall professionalism, if you look at their wider pool, as far as makeup of professionals, is relatively similar. Now, in their named World Cup squad, they have 5 amateurs. So that's where it kind of gets weird, and they had some amateurs on the field on Saturday. But overall, athlete for athlete, we're relatively similar. I'd take Tyler Arjun tomorrow. I'd add him to our squad. He's a very good player. Mike Shepard is, Mike Shepard in a lot of ways is very similar to Ben Landry.
Yeah, they really are. I was thinking that too yesterday watching it.
And so, and then in the second half, we knew where we were, and we just started to build upon what we were. I thought that, as a halfback pairing, we definitely were cold. Oh my gosh. And Nate, stop box kicking at midfield. It's it was funny because in the first game when we played Canada and we just rammed it down their throat, you saw it a little bit from Davies when he finally came on, is the directional box kicking. Because what we need when you're at midfield, you don't really want to just put it up in the air. You want to bring your guys in, set up your platform, and kick it downfield to make them force an exit. And, a lot of Nate's box kicks were we should have just run our attack instead of trying to do that. Especially, and every time an Eagle
kicking it away with there was no seeming thought behind it. It wasn't.
Every time an Eagle scrum half makes a box kick at midfield, I want to just go like this.
And the Eagles couldn't come down with a box kick to save their lives yesterday, whether it was USA or Canada. I mean, how many box kicks did Canada put up there and then successfully, bring in 10 meters down the field? Box kicking, definite improve for World Cup time.
So that's pretty. And then I guess the biggest one in the second half was in extra time, our set piece defense. They kicked to the corner. They had a line out, a maul. It gets stopped, and we turn over the ball. Whistle gets blown. Good to go. But how many lineouts were that the ref just didn't call off that they got? I think there was a bunch of lineouts that went. It was like Canada goes up, reaches to the right, and brings it.
I swear you could tell. Obviously, I don't know if you watch it on Flow, you can see that they were importing the TSN feed. I swear the camera crew was part of the Canadian team. Like they never gave you every time I thought I saw a not straight line out, I'd watch the replay so I could confirm what I had originally seen, and they never showed you a replay where you could judge that angle. And then even Canada's second try, Nelson's try in the corner off the penalty, looked like he was in touch to me. Somehow there was no camera angle of the actual grounding to review it.
Mr. Gridelli, are you calling conspiracy right now? do we need to do investigative reporting? Is this Flowgate? Is that what you're telling me?
I support that. I support their effort. Hey, part of the team, everything to win. Good for TSN. Being out there to help their guys. But yeah.
The best part is, so this is like a national broadcast. This is a test. And it's every time there's a game on TSN and Gareth Rees, who's a former Canadian guy, that when games aren't on TSN, it used to be Brian Kelly, who was the communications manager, and Gareth Rees. It was pretty awful. But at least when I forget who this TSN guy is that does the rugby, it always feels like it's a hockey game. But man, Gareth was commentating like he was a homer, but it was like he wasn't commentating as if he was a Canada rugby great. It was like he had, I don't know, man. It was like you weren't watching the game or haven't seen rugby or played rugby all your life. It was awful.
No one loves.
That was a big hit there, guy. Don't you know?
It was sort of like that.
He ran fast there. I've never seen that before, eh?
But it was this like I said in the second half, the tempo really got better. Who do you think? Just looking at this game before we get to the World Cup roster, and I know Dylan Faraki asked us about Rugby ATL's development team. Liam was at the 404 Rugby versus Mystic game, so we will get to that. We will have a report on that on this show at the end. I think we should have done it first, but we're just going to flow. But who do you think on the 23 that is on the 31 earned the right to start the majority of the World Cup?
Mikey Teo. As soon as Mikey Teo came in, the offense was working at a decent level again. Now, I don't know if that's because Hooley went to fly half at the same time, but honestly, it really looked like it was more Mikey Teo. He was just creating things himself instead of, kind of mindlessly passing, which is how I was doing it until then. And that seemed to be the only thing that built attacking momentum.
Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. I love Nate Osberger as a player. I think he's extremely versatile, and I think he's able to do a lot of things, but I like him way better at wing. This isn't really answering the question, but I would rather have Sean Davies the majority of the time at scrum half, who isn't box kicking, like Aaron said, every few phases, and is at least keeping possession and giving our guys the chance to go through the phases.
Yeah. So this one specifically was, as I said, a shake off the rust, and I think we did no favors for Nate Augsburger, not playing him at all during the PNC. He was the coldest player I've ever seen out there. And then the chemistry isn't really there between him and Will McGee because they don't play together. Whereas Sean Davies and Will McGee are, they're brothers. They basically have lived with each other for a very long time. They don't live with each other now, but over a period of years, playing together in Glendale, they're like this, you know. So it was rough for a little bit. I think, you know, it makes me wonder what the deal is. But did you guys, when he went to the bench and Sean came on, Craig, did you see Ruben DeHaas's facial expression?
No, I didn't.
You need to go back on the replay and watch that. And it's like, he's like, he's like, I'm on the bench for this shit.
You're a regular Frank Caliendo there, dude, doing that impression. I want to hear your South African accent too.
But the Haas wasn't in the 23, right? So
no, he wasn't. He was just on the bench because, like, so the traveling reserves that don't don't play, they don't go up and chill in the suite. They're in street clothes, you know, and they're at the end of the bench. And his expression when Nate Augsburger comes off, it was priceless. He's like,
yeah.
It's like I didn't get to start for this.
I feel like you got the good and the bad of Augsburger, and I was talking about before the game. I didn't think he had a great game overall. I was happy when Davies came in, but he did have that one similar to the first Canadian try where he picked and went on the weak side. I think it was of a scrum, and he ripped off.
Yeah, he grabbed that loose ball. It was a Canadian scrum, and he did Nate Augsburger things, and you're like, that's why he's on this team.
I mean, he's our him and DeHaas, I guess, but I would say I would give him the edge in terms of just purely attacking as a ball carrier, as a 9. But you could see in this game, I don't know if he was nervous or what, but he didn't look like he was ready to be the distributor general type of 9 the way that Davies and DeHaas are.
So, it was an ugly win, but it was a win. In the last 12 meetings against Canada, the United States is 11-0-1. The draw was during World Cup qualifiers when that was held. I forget where that was held in Canada. I forget. It wasn't at Halifax. I think it was in Toronto somewhere. Not sure. Need to look that up. But it was the draw, and then it was Mark Anscombe's last game because he was fired shortly after that. And I was at the test. The second test for the qualifiers in 2017 was in San Diego, where we beat the brakes off of them. So, yeah. That's warm-ups. I think, Craig, we talked about what we wanted to take away from the PNC and warm-ups overall. Liam, I'm sure you listen to that. If not, you have your own takeaways. What do you think we've taken away from this World Cup prep? I mean, we've had Gary mentioned 10 weeks on his thing, but some of the guys have been together for 12 weeks. So this is a tier 1 World Cup warm-up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've had a tier 1 World Cup warm up. What do you think we've been able to take away from that?
Well, one of the most underrated things that I think we haven't really touched on yet, or we touched on it a little bit, is actually fitness, and especially so. Taking this game against Canada, when you're able to finish 20-3, even in a game that's not exactly technically sound, finishing out 20-3 just says a lot about how you're able to go through the rest of the game in the second half, and you're still able to perform and put points on the board. And so I think we saw during different instances throughout the PNC, even though we didn't come out on top, we were able to stay in games late. And when we did start to fall out, it was against really tough competition, such as Samoa and Tonga. So, I think there's a lot to say about how MLR has probably affected that, how guys are now playing more so year round and training year round, have access to better facilities, and I think we're really going to see the effects of that. I think we're going to get at least 1, maybe even 2 victories in our World Cup pool.
Not a boy, Liam.
Yeah, be freaking hopeful, man. Knock on wood if you're with me.
I'll take it. To me, I think this is similar, I guess, to what Liam said. I think it looks to me now like the USA as a team, they're fit, they're physical, they're doing the overall like things on the same level as a tier 1 team, right? They can carry, they can kick, they can do things that they need to be to start creating tier 1. What I think is lacking is a couple of very specific game situation skills. A lot of them around kicking. I think kick chase, we have trouble receiving our own, receiving any box, like taking any ball out of the sky, we have trouble. Line out without Nick Savetta looks very, iffy to me. I don't know how many were airmailed yesterday. There was like 2 or 3 went over the entire line out. So I think, lastly, I think they are just starting to figure out how to use the full game to build a single effort towards something, meaning like when England kicks, for example, they may do a deep kick with the goal of, okay, well, we know our defense is chasing and then we're going to pin them in that deep end and they're going to either have to kick back and now we're going to get it in a more favorable attacking position, or they're going to go into touch and we're going to throw it in. Like there's a second and third stage to everything they do. It's well thought out. I still feel like USA goes back and forth between being thoughtful about what they're doing or just randomly doing something. Like sometimes they kick and it looks like it was a thoughtful kick, usually when AJ's in. And when it's not AJ, a lot of times their kicks seem to be like, well, feel like maybe kick. I don't know. Let's try this. And they kick it off. And then there's no follow-up. And, they end up just having the defense counterattack right back to where they kicked it from.
Yeah, I think one of the, like Liam said, fitness, yeah. Like this team is fit. Eric Fry has abs. Just point that out. Eric Fry has abs now. So this team is fit. Their physical intensity overall, because if they didn't have that physical intensity that they brought against Canada in the first game and against Samoa and even against Japan was just better. Like they were better. But we didn't back down against them. And in this game, if we didn't have this like new physical intensity sort of identity about us, we would have lost this game because we didn't have these recovery systems to where we go, okay, we're playing kind of bad, and we really only played bad for 12 minutes, like really bad for 12 minutes, and then didn't play good on attack for a while, but our defense figured it out pretty early. And we have these we've worked through our mental systems to say, hey, we can take, 20 minutes of bad play. And like you said, Craig, start putting together things over plays and then phases of play over a period of the entire game and, eke out a win. Whereas previously the Eagles weren't mentally tough enough to do this. And this has been a 4-year process under both Mitchell and now a 2-year with Mitchell for about 18 months and now a 2-year process with Gary Gold. That this has just been building and building, and we're kind of there. And one of the things I look at for selections and something that we probably didn't do well enough in the past, especially under Tolkien and probably even under Eddie O'Sullivan and previous coaches, is selecting athletes. And to an extent, we selected like rugby players, but we didn't select the best athletes available. And although there are some other guys that didn't make it into the squad, there are only 3 small dudes, and you couldn't really say one of them is small because Mikey Teo is huge. Like he is built like a brick shit house. Like he is
a car would rebound off him.
And so the 2 smallest, so after Mikey Taylor, the 2 smallest guys on this team are both scrum halves. Everyone else, other than Mikey Teo, Nate Augsburger, and Sean Davies, are all, at least 5'11", 200 pounds. Like that's Paul Lasike is 5'11", but he's not the 200 pounder. So
isn't Nate like 6 feet?
Augsburger? No, he's 5'9".
You're
killing me. Both Sean and Nate are like the same exact size. So
I would have said Nate was taller, Liam. Don't worry.
But you guys need to come out to more games and stand next to these guys.
I've literally met Nate. Like, I don't know.
Just because you're taller than him doesn't mean he's taller. But if you athletic size and strength and ability, we're starting to select the most fit guys available. Like that was started with Mitchell. If you're not fit for camp, you're going home. And that level of accountability, that level of player ownership. And, after the 15 World Cup, I didn't know what this team would look like because it was a bad run. And it took a lot of caps took a lot of debutants that got thrown out, just needed to see what they could do. And especially early on, but this team is ready. And we sadly get the worst pool of the tournament to be ready for something like this. If we were given Canada's pool, we'd beat Namibia and we'd have a chance against Italy. Or there's another pool that's pretty weak. I think it's Samoa's pool. And it's like, okay, there's a chance at 2 wins. Whereas, I'm looking at the Tonga game. It's, target. Yeah. And that is a real win right there. If we are healthy going into that game, because it's on short rest, we should win that game. It'll be probably pretty close, but we should win that game. And then if Argentina or France have a weird day and we have the best day ever, could something happen? We could have a great game. I don't know if we'll win, but we could at least look good. And looking good's cool when it comes to the World Cup and you're not like the All Blacks. So, so moving on, everyone got to see the announcement for the World Cup, right? The World Cup, the USA roster. So I thought the video was pretty cool. I want to find where they found out where they got
weightlifting. It's 3-minute video of the team in the gym.
Yeah, that happened. But we also saw within that announcement there was where did this thing disappear? Oh my gosh, I need to. So as part of that announcement that was on there, you had this really cool video montage. Yeah, it had a lot of weightlifting in it, but it also had footage from the 1920 and 1924 Olympics where the U.S. won 2 gold medals.
Yep, yeah. I'm looking at it right now.
I liked it. It was a lot of the gym, but I thought, the music, the text, the way they revealed, voices of the captains at the end, it all had a good feel to it, emotional, inspirational type of feel. And, I feel like you're normally sitting here complaining, why don't they ever do anything like this? Well, they did something. So, next time I would have, had a little more rugby in the rugby video, but I think B+ for me for the promotional.
Yeah,
hey man, like unfortunately, rugby fans are like Star Wars fans. You can give them literally exactly what they want, and they will still bitch and complain.
I think once England did their video, they kind of set the standard. And I talked about it with you, Craig, earlier in the day about what I would have sort of liked. But for what we normally don't get, this was really good. I was impressed that they were able to find footage of the 1920 and 1924 Olympics.
It was like 6 seconds, but yeah, they got some footage out of that.
Yeah, well,
what it was. You can't even tell. It's like black and white for 5 seconds.
And grainy as hell. But still, it was good. So it was a B for me. I would have liked some. It was a very strong start. I would have liked some on the back end, like announcing each player by itself. But whatever. I'm going to go over the position groups in total. David Ayunu, prop. Eric Fry, prop. Ali Khalifi, prop. T. Lamositelli, prop. And Paul Mullen, prop. So of the 5, Gary Gold said the intent was versatility in case of injury. Basically, 4 of the props. I think the only one that can't play the other side is Mullen. Basically 4 props.
Fry. You think Fry can tight end?
Yeah, he has played tight head in the past. He's too smart.
He's too small.
What?
He looked like
Dude,
flanker.
Eric Fry's huge.
He's got abs. What was that?
Well, yeah, he's not he's not built like a tight head. That is for sure. Iunu is actually built like a tight head.
Iunu I could see. He's like a Lamazatelli clone.
But
loose head. But
yeah. So of the five, I think. So who do you think got snubbed here?
Well, I mean, the obvious look, I guess, is Chancellor Gluski, which, I only think he was snubbed potentially because it looked like he was so in favor during the PNC. I'm pretty sure he started all three. He's got a lot of looks under Gary Gold, dating back to that November, the Maori All Blacks match in Chicago. I mean, he's been getting a lot of love under Gary Gold, so to see him left off entirely was a surprise to me. That said, I like Ali Khalifi, but Ali Khalifi probably won't be around next World Cup. So
yeah, I looked at that and I thought Chancellor Gillespie got snubbed, but as far as I know, he can't play tight end. So they went for World Cup experience and versatility. So
I think that's fair. I mean,
Ollie's been to a World Cup and he can play tight head. So there you go. He's played a lot of tight head. In fact, I think he's played more tight head than he's played loose head for the Eagles, at least.
And he's got 2 MLR championships. I mean, he's had a lot of professional experience at Chancellor.
Then let's go to the locks. Nate Brakely, Nick Savetta, and then you have Ben Landry and Greg Peterson. Well, there was no one in camp except those 4. So I wouldn't say anyone got snubbed based on who was involved in camp, but I wanted to see someone else called in when Samu Manoa retired. Supposedly, well, not supposedly, Riker Hadding was called in, but he had a knee infection, so he was sent home. But they didn't call anyone else in. They didn't call in like Matt Jensen wasn't on the 50. But what was it? Lou Stanfield was on the 50, and then David Tamilau was on the 50, and neither of them were called into camp at all. And I would have liked to have seen something there, but I think we've got a good pairing. I think of the 4, Nate Brakely will probably play the least. I think it's really going to be a rotation of Nick Savetta and Greg Peterson together, and then probably Nick Savetta and Ben Landry. I think those are going to be – that's going to be your 3. And Nate will play, of course, but I think he will play the least. And he's – interestingly, Brakely is the oldest of the 4. So theoretically, all 3 of these guys could be around if – wages pick up or they get foreign contracts the next
Brakely, he might be old, but I'm pretty sure he played like the 2nd or 3rd most minutes on all of Rugby United New York last year.
Oh, he played. He's 30.
Man.
He's 30. I'm not saying he's an old man.
Yeah,
he's my age. So I'm not saying. I'm just saying he'll be 34 when the next World Cup is. So he's probably I don't think. I mean, one of these guys might be around, but we might have a different, at least majority of our locks might be different, but of these 4, he would be the one that's definitely retired, or at least retired from international play. And the rest, Peterson's, Chavetta, and I think Chavetta is probably leaning towards like the twilight of his career because he actually likes engineering. I know that there are some guys that he's an engineer and he likes to be an engineer, but he's also been able to make a living at rugby for a while, and he loves rugby too. So
I'll tell you what, Landry has been knocking the lights out of people since the PNC, and I'm digging it. He left with an HIA yesterday, so assuming he'll be fine by World Cup time. But he's probably made the most ground in my mind since the PNC started of people I want to see on the pitch.
I think when you look at Landry, considering from when he came back from football and just focused on rugby, he has grown leaps and bounds as a player, as a rugby player. and you know why he continues to get caps.
It's field awareness, like when you garner those athletic skills in football, but like the jump to rugby, it can seem natural, but there's a whole element of the game that's all mental, and that's where the improvement's coming.
He was capped well before he tried to make the Bears, but like since then, like his growth in 3 years has been tremendous. And then so moving on to the back row, really no surprise for me. You've got the only number 8 listed on this is Cam Dolan, but the rest of the back row is Malon Aljabori, Henko Hamishais. Oh wait, why did I do that?
Yeah, wait, what?
I didn't even talk about hookers, but we'll go to them after I do this. Tony Lamborn, Ben Pinkelman, and John Quill. Based on who was in camp, I think the last spot was between Jamison and Pinkelman won it over. I guess it was. I mean, it was a contentious race. The thing for me is, I have no idea why Som Wuching wasn't in camp. I mean, that's my only thing.
He was the fastest rising name in USA Rugby for like a good few months, especially considering.
But his form this year was great. Pinkelman over Jamison. I mean, you want a fast rising name? Was Jamison when he starting for the SaberCats, and that pushed him all the way to a cap in less than 6 months of being in the United States. Yes, he is an American for all those that want to know, but he was born overseas and spent his entire life in Australia mostly.
And the dude has a motor. Like, we've been talking about fitness, we've been talking about athletes. Like, even when this guy's in practice, he goes 110%. So I can definitely see why Gary brought him onto this squad.
So I think it was contentious. I wouldn't really call it a snub. They were definitely battling for that last spot.
Yeah, but I will say, when I first, coming into the PNC, when you saw the names that were available, I thought Jameson would have the edge there, and I thought Pinkelman would probably get left out of the Japan team. But seeing them play in the PNC, I didn't think either blew each other away. But what did kind of occur to me over time was, I think Pinkelman coming from the 15s program, or the 7s program rather, that's been so successful this year. I feel like you want some people that have that habit of winning around too. Just that winning mentality, and he's achieved so much with the 7s team, whereas Fanana Schultz, sorry if I mispronounced that name, largely accomplished in the.
I learned it. Fiana.
Fiana Schultz. Got it.
Yeah. That's a big one. Then moving back up to the hookers, my position. I don't even know how I missed this. Of course, Joe Tafete. Then you've got the Butcher, Dylan Fawcett, and James Hilterbrand. This is the three this is as expected for me. They did have 6 hookers in camp.
And that was just in the dorms after hours, man. You should have seen on the field.
But yeah, and, so you had Sosteni, Fayagi, Capelli Pifoletti, and somebody else. But there were 6 guys that play hooker that were in camp, and they all got used during the PNC, actually, now that I think about it. So, it was kind of I think these 3 are as expected.
Yep, agreed. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't Honko, on a rare occasion, also hooked for?
Mitchell was trying to make him a hooker, and
he's got the body build. If you actually see him in person,
he played hooker for Gary in that 2018 Denver test, when Joe, Joe couldn't come back on, and Dylan was in and went off for an HIA or something, and then all of a sudden Hanko's in the front row playing hooker. It was intense. So, in theory, you've got, a back row player that can play three positions because he can also play number 8 as well. People have asked, about the like where our depth is at number 8. I mean, I've discussed this with Craig and some other people. Yeah, we don't have another number 8 on this roster, but there are guys that have played number 8 a lot, not necessarily for the Eagles. Tony Lamborn has played at number 8. Honko has played at number 8, and Malon has played at number 8. So I think they're just going with the overall depth and versatility of the back row that most of those guys can play all three positions if required.
Dylan Fawcett played 8 for a game.
So and then you've got Dylan Fawcett, who until he was called up to the Eagles, I'd only ever seen play number 8. So there you go. Moving on to the good old halfbacks at scrum half and wing, we've got Nate Augsburger, and then at pure scrum half, we've got Sean Davies and Ruben De Haas. Well, they were the only 3 in camp, and the only other one named to the 50-man was Mike Petrie, and there was no snub. I mean, all 3 of them made it. So there you go.
Yep. We'll see who starts.
Yeah.
It'll depend on the opponent.
So, and then move into the midfield. We've got Marcel Brockie, Bryce Campbell, and Paul Lasike and Threaten Palama. We didn't see a lot of Threaten on this, but man, after
just means he's fresh, baby.
Sitting down for
that boy can move.
Sitting out for over a year with a foot injury, when he did come on the field for the SaberCats, it was.
He was a difference maker. People had to account for him, especially on the outside, and that just was able to open up opportunities for his teammates, especially because the dude can offload inside traffic. That's a very underrated part of his game. So even when it was taking 2 or 3 guys to, from our opponents to commit to tackling him, he was able to, still get the ball out, and we had all these gaps to take advantage of. And it's no coincidence that his coming onto our roster. I shouldn't even say our roster anymore. I'm not with Houston anymore. But especially when Threaten showed up, when Jameson showed up, when Dion Mixell showed up. That's when our production got a lot better, and it was in situations that Threaten was kind of taking the lead.
Yeah, that was for Threaten. That was really good to see. He was in shape, and he was a difference maker for the SaberCats. Moving to the wings, you've got Blaine Scully, captain. Then you've got Martin Yosefo and Mike Teo being the only pure listed wings. Although, point out originally that Marcel Brockie was listed as a wing, and Martin Yosefo was listed as a center. I'll get to the fly halves a bit, but so that one was kind of interesting. Marcel Brockie is a guy who can play from 11 to 15, and I would say as good or better than everyone except at position than Paul Lasike, to be honest. He is that versatile and that high level of an athlete and rugby player. He's an old professional at this point. He's been playing Super Rugby and now I guess Global Rapid Rugby for 10 years. So, but again, at wing, really no one really lost their spot at wing.
Kevin Moore, I think could have been on this team. He was another one I thought was a Gary Gold favorite, but didn't make the cut.
Gannon Moore was in the World Cup camp in 2015 and then disappeared off the face of the earth because he moved to New Zealand and played club rugby. Made it to, I think, North Harbour, onto the squad for North Harbour in the Mitre 10 one year. I think he played 1 year in the Mitre 10, and then he just was on North Harbour B the rest of the way. And then finally he broke out under Gary Gold. I guess you could say he was kind of snubbed, but he didn't play enough in the PNC to have sort of earned that spot from, say, Martin Yosefo, someone that I thought kind of got snubbed when it came to the 50-man roster was Ryan Mathias, who can play center and wing at a very high level and has sort of that 7 speed as well. And then at fullback, you've only got Will Hooley named. And then our fly halves are Aj McGinty and Will McGee. So yeah.
You forgot about old Aj, did you?
It was dry. It was a dry mouth. Sorry. But yeah, so I think this is when we got towards the end of the PNC, this is overall outside of Chance maybe or Jamison. This is who I thought was going to be on this roster. It's really good to see Mikey Teo fit and ready to play. That's really important because he brings a different skill set. I know he's listed as wing, if you put him at fullback, he brings a different style of play than Will Hooley does. He can kick from hand quite a bit, but all of his kicks are really putting the ball in play. He can get us out of a jam with some cross kicks, but he doesn't have the same leg as Will Hooley does. But in a way, he's a lot more athletic than Will is. But he's, like I said, he's a different style of player.
Yeah. I mean, I think he might be our best, like, pure attacker in terms of, like, honestly, him and Thread and Palamo are probably the most, like, dangerous in traffic, in the open, and like, anytime they get the ball, I feel like Mikey Teo can make something happen. Same with Thread and Palamo. Martin Iacefo, again, I've been skeptical of him starting. Obviously, he scored the dagger against Canada. He basically made that try himself, too. That's a similar type of thing, though. I'm not sure he could do it in tight quarters the way I think a Mikey Teo can. So, for me, I love Mikey Teo as an attack option, and I think he should be starting.
Yeah, I think that you look at Iacefo, and if you're wondering what happened, he might have he might have played himself onto the starting roster. For me, I think I'd put Mikey Teo on the starting roster tomorrow.
Mikey is just like such a defensive presence out of the backfield too. Like, teams have to account. You can't just try to kick into space against us when he's back there at fullback, because he's so fast and he's able to adapt so quickly, whether he wants to boot it back to you or if he wants to just take it himself and create some offense. So I'm not sure if versatile is like the right word for that. He's just so goddamn effective, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I mean, if you told me tomorrow that Mikey Teo was going to start at wing or start at fullback, I would not be surprised because the thing that we saw from him this year was when he played for San Diego is that he's fit. Like he didn't look just like a pudgy kid like he did on all those 7 years that he played. He came back shredded. And he was everything that he used to be and more, which is what I think, what an injury can do to a player. So, but I think that about wraps up our World Cup coverage when it comes to this roster. But Liam, you sort of went to view a MLR-ish type preview in the ARP.
Yeah, so I guess you could say that. So yesterday I went to Malden, Massachusetts, where 404 Rugby, which is the exhibition squad of Rugby ATL, featuring a number of both young, upcoming, as well as veteran players who you're probably going to be seeing on the final ATL roster. They came to town to play the Mystic River Rugby Club ARP squad, and that also features a plethora of New England Free Jack players, just to name a few: Christian Adams, Oliver Engelhart, Adnan Kawuma. Sorry, Adnan, I'm absolutely butchering your name there, dude. But yeah, no, it was absolutely a good game, and to a little bit surprising, Mystic kept us pretty close, especially in the first half. To begin with, don't worry, I'll get to the blowout a little bit later. But in the first half, Mystic displayed some pretty good defense. They were able to kind of keep Atlanta, towards the midfield, and they weren't allowing them to be effective whenever they used kicking to get down towards the Mystic territory. Unfortunately, that began to kind of level off. as Mystic, got a little bit more tired and the minutes started to drag on, I noticed a lot of their backfield depth started to suffer, and they were sort of flat when it came to their passing game. This allowed Atlanta to, who were a lot more adept at coming up as one on defense, to sort of quell any kind of attack. So when Mystic did have the ball, they weren't gaining a whole lot of meters per pass, and eventually that kind of led to a lot more penalties because they were just kind of stagnating in the middle of the field. Now, that's definitely not to say that there weren't some standouts in this game. You had people like Jared Collinson, especially, who I was really excited to see play, and I think he's going to be a great player for the New England Free Jacks. He was able to score I think it was actually just one try on the day, but he was effective all over the field from minute 1 to minute 80. And I think he's going to be a great player to see. Christian Adams, unfortunately, he's going to be an exciting player for the New England Free Jacks. He didn't get a whole lot of minutes. He came in just at the end of the game, but that's good. Keep the guy healthy, keep the guy fresh. And then Oliver Engelhart, scrum half out of Dartmouth. He was actually seeing more minutes in the back row versus ATL, whereas Ian Luciano spent most of the game, or if not all the game, at number 9. He was pretty effective, especially on the quick ball. Unfortunately, in the end, it was really penalties that kind of killed this Mystic squad.
Yeah, I was
final score 50-25 for Rugby.
Yeah, I watched the Twitter feed as you pushed it out, and I was really surprised that because that 404 Rugby Club, if you look at the names on their roster, most of those players hadn't played together, like, ever.
Oh yeah, like Amro Guda, for instance. He was coming up from Houston. He's not currently signed to the Houston SaberCats. He's usually a hooker. He spent most of his career at hooker, but he was actually a loosehead prop, which kind of made for an interesting combination. But I'm pretty sure he made it all 80 minutes through the game at playing at number 1.
So who are you guys? Who gets more wins in MLR 2020? New England Free Jacks or Rugby Atlanta?
Oh, definitely the New England Free Jacks, man. We are going to have some crazy depth, especially in the back line. We have some guys coming from overseas that have not been announced yet, and it's going to be pretty darn exciting, believe me. We are going to put up some points, and we are going to have a freaking physical defense. Bring it.
San Diego's just probably going to win because I can finally then just be a San Diego fan, apparently. That is the theme.
You just,
I don't know if I go by that score, if I go by that,
it was not even half the Free Jack roster, so don't even get me started.
Even half of Atlanta's roster. We're just talking about players. If I go by that, I'm going to be fairly surprised at what Atlanta brings to the table. The questions I have, because I think it does help them a lot. The fact that they're both brand new teams to an extent within the right construct have this like, was it 8 games in the ARP? Something like these 8 or 9 games early and then take a break so that guys can recharge and then fall into your camp or at the end, like right after Thanksgiving, and build towards the 3rd season of MLR. I think whereas, something that didn't really help the SaberCats in the first season was that they played a very long preseason it was double the length of. So there are 8 games in the first season of MLR, and they played 16 games before the season started. So it didn't really help them that well. But yeah, it's I think Atlanta will be pretty good.
Atlanta will be a good team. I think it's DC that's going to be facing the problems. But.
Yeah, DC is going to be interesting to see what they do. But for the moment, I do not think that they will be the worst team in the league. Just saying.
All right.
I think that about wraps it up. Anything from you, Craig?
Nope.
All right. I guess we're supposed to like say some like thing at the end. Well, I do work for Major League Rugby, but these views are not Major League Rugby's. There is a better written version that Corey will insert at the end. Liam also works for the Free Jacks, and these views do not represent the New England Free Jacks. And we hope that everyone has a great evening and go out and enjoy some football. All right.
Heck yeah, go Pats, baby.